limiting conditions. What we must, I feel like I'm giving a lecture. So what we must do is to minimize the negative impact of this virus and prolong the duration of its spread within our communities, because it will come to an end. These things, nature has its own way of terminating it.
Yes.
And I think, maybe I shall say finally, one other thing I'd like to say is this: we will overcome this. We will overcome this because the world will continue. We've had bigger tragedies than this one. And I think it's important that even as we listen to our political leaders and other leaders telling us how serious it is, I think it's also true to say loudly and clearly, we are a resilient nation. We have confronted difficulties before. We shall overcome this one. Let us, clear words, communication. Accurate communication with experts like Amit. That's my view, very humbly put.
Right, thank you. Amit, let's just take a short break, Amit, then we'll circle back with you. And yes, some good news that there is a glimmer of hope. Don't despair. Even when you pick up the Daily Nation today, there is some good news there. China has closed down its last coronavirus hospital. Not enough new cases to support them. This is what Dr. Njenga was saying. Also, doctors in India successful in treating it. That is also a good one. Researchers at the Erasmus Medical Center claim to have found an antibody. And also, a 103-year-old Chinese grandmother has made a full recovery after being treated for 6 days, I should say, in Wuhan, China. Also, Apple reopens all 42 China stores. Also, there is a resumption of business as well. That is good news. At least we can see a silver lining on this ominous cloud that is hanging over us as well. We'll take a short break right now. When we circle back, we continue with more. Also, we shall hear from you as well. You can call in, ask questions, share your contributions as well. Hit us on Twitter. AM Live NTV is our Twitter handle. AM Live NTV, our profile name on Facebook, and 20686, our SMS portal. Don't go away.
We believe in working with you to find a way to get things done. We call this Africanacity.
Things are thick. Think kama yeye penzi lenye mpaka kwa macho.
Na wewe unamjuaje?
I was his fiance.
Chika storo kibao na 200% storo bonus. Piga simu zaidi, tuma SMS au nunua bundles ufikishe target yako leo. Isitoshe, pata 50% extra airtime unapo top up na kupiga *544*2* amount hash. Safaricom, for you.
Automated parking system, you can now pay for parking in 3 stress-free ways. Using M-Pesa through the USSD code *486*12#, or using cash at the CAPS payment points located in the parkings, or using your preloaded CAPS A card. No payment will be done at the exits.
Mzungu alikuja hapo kitambo akapata watu wanachimba gold. Is this a gold mine? Then Muluya akasikia akasema, hii ni kolomani.
Abiri is a solution that gives you the power to book a ticket to your destination at the right time and the right price. Download the app or log on to www.iabiri.com or call us on 0709-215-215 to book your ticket now.
When you're facing stubborn stains, you're always in a fierce fight. Clean Soft kicks out stains. Kimateki.
Welcome back. You're watching Standing on Guard, where we keep an eye on the enemy. And of course, the biggest threat right now globally is coronavirus pandemic. And we take, of course, a break from the normal guests and the panel that we normally have on Wednesday when we look at matters security and diplomacy and international affairs as well, and train our focus on this with health experts here in studio. I am holding court with me Dr. Amit Thaka, who is the chair of the Kenya Health Federation. Also, we do have with us the chair of the National Mental Health Task Force. This is Dr. Frank Njenga, who is a consummate also psychiatrist as well. We continue with the conversation apace. Hit us on Twitter, AM Live NTV, which is our Twitter handle. AM Live NTV is our profile name on Facebook, and also 20686, our SMS portal. Remember to use the hashtag AMLiveNTV. If you have questions, I think this will be also an opportune time for you to fire away your questions, and then our panel experts are going to answer your questions or also comment on your contribution as well. So before we took a short break, I think Amit had cut you short a bit, right? But we are also trying to see the social psycho support on this as well, because this is, I think, big as well. As far as we're heading, talking about the genome and talking about all this that sometimes really go way over our heads. At the end of the day, is a mental health state as well. Just let's continue.
Yes, I want to just really echo what Frank has said, that there couldn't be a better time for Kenyans to come as united in the principle of solidarity than now. We also must be very clear, it's easy to blame everyone. I think we talked about that.
Yes.
And also, I think we need to be clear that it's nobody's fault. When you start blaming a particular type of people or where they come from, and we've seen this in social media, that you brought corona to us, you are bringing it, or you are corona.
You are corona.
If that's the habit, it must stop from every Kenyan now. We are not blaming people. It's not anybody's fault that they've got corona. This is the time to practice hygiene and social distancing to bring it down. I was really happy what the president did on Sunday. Each one of us watching and here, we started changing our behavior. Guess what happened on Tuesday? Guess what happened this morning? I was telling Frank when I was driving here, the amount of traffic that I saw on the road was incredible. Now let's talk about social distancing. You want to social distance and you're going to public transport, matatu. Minimum 1 meter.
Yes.
How many passengers can sit?
14.
And what is the distance between one to the next passenger?
Hardly also 1 meter.
Tell me, where is the social distancing? Are we carrying the virus on our roads every day?
That's a question actually.
And you know,
Bashara will tell us.
So what social distancing is there? There is no way a matatu is going to say, I'm only going to carry 2 passengers. If they do that, that will be responsible. I haven't seen that. Maximum 2, right? And you can't carry more than that. If it doesn't happen, I'm really of the opinion that we should really work quickly towards a state of emergency. If we really care about the people and the citizens, we need to declare a state of emergency with a coordinated approach to ensure that the virus doesn't spread. This is the only chance. You know what Italy said? They wished they had done that 10 days ago. Do you know what all the other cities said when they had 2,000, 4,000, 5,000 cases? They wished they had closed down much earlier. Do we need to wait for double digits?
That's the question.
Are we waiting for numbers to go up? Because the numbers will go up. And we need to really bite the bullet and support each other in making sure that we totally slow down so that we don't have numbers. For us to rebound back into our economy, it will take much longer than the US. We're not going to pop that easily. So we all need to come together and manage any kind of movement in these numbers of the virus.
But I like to speak kind of like in support of with what Amit is saying,
yes,
without prescribing. And I will go back to history. And I think history is a good teacher. And I'll take you back, together with your viewers, to 1918, to a city of Philadelphia,
yes,
in the United States. This was a time just after the war, and the people of Philadelphia decided to come together and have a big meeting to raise funds to support themselves because the war had come to an end,
yes,
or a kind of big harambe. They were advised not to do it because there was at that time what was called the Spanish flu spreading. Other cities in the US listened to that advice. The city of Philadelphia ignored that advice.
Yes.
The consequence of that is that the city of Philadelphia became the epicenter of the biggest epidemic of all time that ended up killing 50 million people globally, the equivalent of 200 million people today. Everybody now agrees that if the city of had listened to the advice that they were given about, so this is not new knowledge about social distancing, and about not gathering at this point in our lives. Majuto ni mjukuu. We will pay for the consequences of not creating social distances.
Correct.
As I said earlier, you called me here
yes,
on the claim that I know something about mental health. Let me tell you one or two things that again are worth making a record of. Whenever I've had the opportunity to speak here or elsewhere, I have talked about the things that are promotive of good mental health.
Yes.
And one of the things that I have said in the past is that people must promote social gathering. People must congregate.
Yes.
People must be together. Families must be together. People must go out and socialize. These are difficult and new times. I, Frank Jenga, are saying the opposite. Exactly what I have told us to do previously.
A flip of it now.
Which is to hug and be together and be very friendly. I am telling you now, today and for the next 3 months at the very least, go against all the advice I have given you about staying connected. What is the consequence of this advice that we are now giving? We know it. We know that particularly the elderly, when isolated, when not connected to society in general, are now prone to develop serious mental health consequences. Again, all the science around that is very clear. So, first, let's observe social distances, and secondly, let's do what we are told in the Holy Bible. Let us be our brother's keeper. Let us find, you have a neighbor, I'm sure you have, I mean, you have a neighbor who's old and so on. Look after them in the best way that you can. The Canadians, funny enough, have done a very good job in spreading this particular message of being your brother's keeper. And I think that's what Amit was saying. Acting together, we will conquer this thing. Not tomorrow, not the day after, but in a period of time. But we have serious consequences by following good scientific advice. As long as we are aware of that, then we can prepare for it. If we didn't know that we are acting against the good mental health of our people, then it would be a bigger problem. There's another thing that I'd like to say, and this is why I corrected you about people dying by suicide, not committing suicide.
Yes.
There is a very heavy price everybody in the world is going to pay because of this particular. Amit has talked about the challenges with transport industry.
Yes.
The tourism industry will call, I don't know, I don't want to say the truth completely, but it's not going to work because we are acting against it. When you go to a surgeon, yes, and he tells you you have this appendix, whatever it is that needs to be removed, he also tells you it's going to hurt. Yes, you don't say remove it without pain because it's not going to happen. This is like a surgeon talking. He's telling us as Kenyans, this thing is going to hurt. but we will get better if we don't do this one. So I think, just speaking as an old man, we need to get this message across. It will get better, for sure, but we need to take some very serious and drastic measures. Now, coming back, and I'll stop in a minute, to the economy and mental health.
Yes.
The science around that is very loud. In 08, the consequences of the economic collapse, not only with overdose, by the way, there were a number of very dramatic suicides in New York and other places. But the big problem with the economic recession all over the world is it causes unemployment. It leads to unemployment, leads to loss of dignity, and increases directly the number of mental disorders that we have in the community.
Yes.
This is going to happen, but again, we know the science about how it happens, and the support of societies and communities is the responsibility of us as society, government, private sector, and everybody else, because again, we know what is going to happen. I'll stop there, but I've said this, I repeat it. There's a lot of science around this one, and we need to remain faithful to science. Whether we're talking about mental disorders as a consequence of economic collapse, or whether we are talking about the consequence of social distances to individual human beings.
Can I add, Debal, role of media?
Role of media.
On what we are talking about. I'd really love to see all your newspapers and all your media stations and every media house in Kenya changing narrative. There are nice, good sensation headlines. How much have you done to change the social behavior for Kenyans? How much have you done to keep our elderly and children engaged with edutainment? How much have you done to enable us to embrace social distancing and keeping ourselves isolated? These are nice headlines, but we don't need more eyeballs. We cannot have your editors thinking about numbers and the eyeballs on media. If that's the strategy, I beg you to stop immediately. All media houses. Let's get information that's robust, help us to change our model without having the stage of denial. You know the clip you showed earlier? One of them said this is gonjwa ya wadosi kutoka kwa ndege.
Yes.
Do you know why?
Yes.
Because there's a denial phase. Now, when there's a denial phase, and if the media are going to brush it aside, I'm so glad you brought this story, and thank you for bringing this. Denial phase was the phase what brought the second largest Ebola outbreak in Congo.
Denial phase.
Denial phase. They didn't think that it was real. They thought it was being brought in by WHO, by the Westerners. In fact, another clip which was doing the social media, it was like they are bringing this to make money for services and products. There are people thinking this has been imported for financial gain. That narrative, can you please help us to change that on the ground? Every county governor, if there is one responsibility they must take today, is to change the narrative of the people in their counties. Remove the denial. This is not malaria. We're talking about science here. It's a fact, it's proven. This is not malaria. We cannot really faff around saying that this is wishy-washy, it'll go away. This is real. People need to understand it's there, and people need to now engage in a different social manner before getting mental health conditions. We can start waving, we can start engaging through other modes of communication without feeling that this is the end of the world. It's a tighten our seatbelts for 3 months for a happier life in the third quarter and fourth quarter of 2020.
But can I just make, because I think Amit is making good points. Yes. He sometimes does. Because if now I was an editor, and we're all getting fed up of all these death things and so on and so forth, the reality The reality, and I think that's what Amit is talking about, is that 98% of those who are infected recover. Did you know that?
Yes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, nobody's telling us that. People are, it's as though everybody who catches this COVID-19 is going to, it's not true.
It's not a death sentence.
98% will recover. That's the first part of good news and hope for all of us. Secondly, death rates go up as age goes up. Yes? Yeah. And that is why Italy, poor people, poor Italians, in this particular sense, have one of the oldest populations in the world. And old people are the ones who are dying. Let's look at Kenya. Let's look at Africa. We have a young population. All right? It means that if the Italian death rate is, what, 4 or 5%, because our population is so much younger than that of the Europeans in general, the rates of mortality, death in a situation is going to be that much less. Thirdly, and I speak now completely in somebody else's league, I don't know, I speculate, that therefore the likelihood that we as a community will develop herd immunity sooner rather than later, because of a younger population, is another piece of good news. And the fourth part of good news, and I'm just supporting in support of Amit, is that because we are 3 or 4 months behind China and South Korea and a little bit behind Italy, we are good students. We have learned and we continue to learn from those who have suffered from before. So many of the measures we are putting in place are not guesswork. We have made big lessons from China, from Italy, from South Korea and other places. So if any editor wants to give good news, there are bits and pieces of good news. Not to say we don't social distance and wash our hands, but to say there is hope and there's some positives in this part of the world. And I think the narrative of negative becomes destructive and goes against the best interest of the mental health of our people. This is negative thinking, and it's like that.
So it is counterproductive to what you're trying to achieve.
Let's speak the truth. We have some very, very bad news and some good news.
Right, but let's speak the truth when it comes to social distancing restrictions as well. And we mentioned matatus, which is, we've had pronouncement from the Ministry of Transport that after every trip, make sure you disinfect or wash your vehicle. How practical is that in the first place?
Look,
because even if you go to Rwanda, I think they've said, can you halve maybe the number of passengers that you normally carry? So if you're carrying 14, make sure you carry 7.
Right. I mean, it's the first step. But how fast do we want to scale up the social distancing? Because washing hands before and after a trip, what happens during a trip? Because this virus is very contagious, as you know. That's why when we are taking a swab from the throat, we have to wear protective gear. If you make a mistake, you get infected as a health worker.
Just a little trickle of...
If you make a mistake of the swab,
that's it.
That's it. You're infected. That's how health workers have been infected. Now, if it's that contagious and you're sitting in a matatu and you are just not practicing social distance because the 1 meter gap is to ensure that the droplet doesn't move that far. That's the whole idea. So one thing for sure we need to do today is to talk about the public transport and the reality behind it. Great, washing hands is great. You know, observing basic hygiene is great. Is that enough? Not at all. We need to get really serious about this. Again, I want to repeat, let's tighten our seat belts for the next 3 months, like Frank says. Are we willing to do that for Kenya? Are Kenyans willing to sacrifice for happiness in Kenya? If that's the case, why are people still traveling on the roads after the president announced it? There was a great announcement. He's urging. And I think the authorities, when they urge, they're watching.
Yes.
Are you still going back to the offices? If there are any offices that are not offering essential services and staff are reporting to work, you are not playing your part in helping Kenya. If you are loitering about, going on day-to-day living of your daily life without observing keen social distancing, you're not playing your part. If you think this disease is not here and it's just a showcase of other people from the Western world, you're not playing your part as a Kenyan. Can Kenyans step up together and play Kenyans' part
Maybe
to help?
maybe the messaging also from the executive has not been very clear as far as going to work is concerned.
If the message is not clear,
because he's been very categorical with the schools. We are closing schools. We are closing
let me tell you this.
I think it was step one.
Yeah?
It was step one.
If the message is not clear,
Yes.
it is because the situation is not clear. Let nobody lie to you that they have a lot of experience, they know everything about these things. Every single day comes with new challenges. And I think that's what we said from the beginning. Let us be supportive of each other, and let us be supportive of each other in learning together every single day. Let me give you an example. The United Kingdom don't have matatus. London doesn't have matatus.
Yes.
They have something worse. It's called the the London metro system. Now, those who have traveled in this underground system, it's worse than a matatu, because a stranger, his nose is next to you like this, and you're breathing next to that total stranger every day.
Yes.
They have to close the underground system. You know why? Because if you close the underground system in London today, you have paralyzed the economy completely, 100%. So what I was saying earlier is that the calculations that have to be done on the consequences of taking some very big decisions, like stopping all matatus or like stopping the underground system, are done on calculations of scientists. Yes, what is the cost benefit of this particular measure? It's not done by administrators sitting down somewhere,
yes,
and depending on how they slept last night, making those, it's not good work. It's sit down with scientists and say, what is the economic consequences of closing the matatu system at this point in the transmission cycle? I know the day will come when we are approaching the peak, and I suspect the peak will come in another 3 or 4 weeks.
Yes.
At that time, even I, as a lay person who knows very little about epidemiology, will say as we come towards the peak, then we have to shut down. Is this a time to shut down? The British government was asked yesterday by journalists last night,
yes,
why have we not closed schools?
Yes.
Why is it that our school? The answer was that in our calculations, that is a measure that is coming, but we have not reached that particular measure.
That's right.
So measures that you put in place in an epidemic of this nature have to be appropriate to the point at which the spread is taking place. Don't just sit with your friends in wherever you like to sit and say, this is what we shall close matatus, we shall close schools. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It's foolish.
But why have we been slow off the mark to declare this national disaster? Right? And what are the ramifications?
Look, again, let's not go that route. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Yes. I can't say that we have been slow off the mark, because I don't know that. I don't even know what's going to be decided today.
Yes.
I fear that nobody knows, actually, what will happen if you get a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, or the seventh case, or if, as happens, the doubling of these numbers keep happening every few days.
Let me say, compared to African countries,
yes,
and you've observed them, you've seen how the spread's been going in the rest. We were one of the first ones who took off in this direction. On the same day we announced it, South Africa also announced similar, and the other countries are following. So we're not slow off the mark, first and foremost. I think Kenya is taking a lead. And like Frank says, every day we are learning something new.
Every day.
And I'm sure that the state is on top of this issue. What we need to do is we should not regret. When we meet Debal after 2 weeks, I don't want to hear, I wish we had.
This is
that
the point.
Is what
nobody in an epidemic has ever said, oh, I wish we had left the matatus. It's usually the other way around.
Yes.
That we have done it like Italy. 10 days too late.
10 days too late.
And if we do it a few days earlier,
yes,
we have nothing to lose.
We have nothing to
but
lose.
If we do 10 days later,
oh,
we have a lot to lose.
Do
you see that? So we should never be in Kenya of I wish we had. And that's why we are coming together as media, as professionals, as policymakers, as leaders. Let's take these steps together. And the best thing you can do is to tell the public to be prepared and to take this thing in a positive manner when we are talking about taking these strict measures.
All right, so the question will be again, Zambia right now, and I just want to run that particular clip by you. We know they have no case of coronavirus as it stands, but Zimbabwean President Emerson Mnangagwa has declared the coronavirus pandemic a national disaster already. He says this could help the government mobilize resources. He has also cancelled Independence Day celebrations and international sporting events to curb the spread of COVID-19. Although this Southern African nation, we know as it is, has not yet registered any COVID-19, the economic impact of the pandemic is already being felt, right? I'm just reading the report here. According to authorities,
do they have
Zimbabwe has been plunged into an economic crisis before. Maybe that's why they're going full steam ahead to actually try Zimbabwe to try and stem the situation right now. Yeah. So in light of this, no one has actually contracted the virus. But they've gone full steam ahead to say this is a national disaster, right?
Completely wrong.
Briefly, we shall hear from you briefly.
And then I will tell you why you're completely wrong.
All right, let's just listen in.
Government has decided that the coronavirus pandemic be declared a national disaster. This allows government to mobilize the resources. While we have no recorded cases as yet, the economic impact of the pandemic is already being felt. Government has postponed the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair, ZITF. All national independence celebrations previously planned and the pending international sporting fixtures until the threat of coronavirus recedes.
So you're saying completely wrong? Why?
The World Health Organization has given us very loud and very clear instructions.
Yes.
The way to respond to this problem is testing, testing, testing. If the Zimbabwean government is going to be truthful, they would tell us we have carried out 50,000 tests, and out of those 50,000, nil have turned out to be positive. I don't know that they have done what we in Kenya are doing, which is to test, test, test. So when you say that we don't have any cases, it means we have no capacity to do the testing.
We haven't found any cases yet.
It doesn't mean they're not there.
We haven't registered yet.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So that's one point. So there's no reason for complacency. The second point is that remember that it takes, this is the trouble with this virus, from the day you catch it to the day you die, it takes at least 17 days. So it means that for 17 days from that time...
Until you die?
Yeah. I mean, not until you die, but it takes, it has a very
It manifests itself.
Yeah, it takes 17 days. Every 6 days, these cases double. Yeah? So if you do your math and see how this thing is spreading, there are some places, and again it depends on the age and geographical locations and so on, for every one case that you detect, there could well be hundreds of others that are there in the community. So even here in Kenya, the fact that we have found, as they say, only 4, does not mean that we have only 4 people who are infected in this country.
Yes, yes.
Epidemiologists will tell you, I don't know how many, 800 more for every one case that you have got. So so let's not complacency on numbers when our testing capacity is so low. You can only say, and this is again where the Chinese were very good, and the Koreans, particularly the Koreans, because they went for mass testing. And mass testing gives you some idea of the extent and severity of the problem.
Right.
So I'm very happy that the Zimbabweans are celebrating, but I think we must warn them, because they are friends and brothers, that it doesn't mean it's not there.
Right. I want to add, you heard what the EU did yesterday.
Yes.
They've locked down EU.
Completely.
Now, and this happened with them 48 days ago. what we are facing now. So can we go a step forward and do it at Africa Union?
Yeah.
So we should really seriously talk about air travel in Africa. Every case in Kenya that is positive was somebody who traveled from outside.
It's been imported.
Yes.
Even I think even
That's
yesterday
right.
in Mombasa, there were 2 Italians actually that were turned away.
So the issue of how to deal with the airport, we talked about Matatu.
Yes.
Great. Social distancing, that's local management. We have to do it. Your viewers are listening.
So we ground the Matatus.
We
No.
we need to manage the Matatu.
I just say we close Matatus.
I said the number of passengers in a Matatu for social distancing is not appropriate today.
It doesn't make any lick of sense for you to carry 2 people in a 14-seater Matatu.
I didn't say
why
2,
would it?
I said
you had mentioned. You
Yeah.
gave an example
Let's
of
work
2.
it out.
Yeah, for the social distancing. Yeah. How then is it economically appropriate for me to actually be carrying 2
running
people?
it out.
At the end of the day, I better
Well,
just maybe just.
I have a good
uh,
answer for you.
Yes,
I
please.
don't know.
I don't know, and maybe that's why we have to say we have to tighten our
Exactly.
belts. Everything is not about
Yes.
money right now. In fact, the operators must be given a stimulus package that if you run a Matatu, you will get a check of so much, or you'll be given some support, or you'll be given a PAYE break or a tax break or some incentive. All countries are doing that.
Yes, yes.
And who says it's about money? The 3 months are not about money anymore. It's about livelihood and what next. So I was saying that air travel,
Before we even go to the air travel, let's just stick around with the situation on the ground, because work continues apace in many offices right now.
I know that.
Yeah, and you had indicated if they took the president seriously,
yes,
people should not just be showing up in the offices.
Like in NTV, if we're hosting the show,
Yes,
this
yes,
is
yes.
great because you're also doing this national duty of giving the message.
Essential services.
If there was a way you could get me on Skype,
I know.
And Frank, the next show, be happy to do that.
For sure.
If there are staff who've come here today because they have to deal with the camera and the lights, that's probably a national duty. But many of your staff should be working from home because they can post stories from where they are.
But we've already taken that initiative.
And I'm sure you have.
Yeah,
When I
so
walked this morning,
have
I
people.
could see it.
Yeah, there are people who are working from home if they can right now. A lot of people also have taken compulsory leave to
Show
just
that
in
clip.
light. Yeah.
Show that clip.
Very
on
important.
Breakfast News, that this is how NTV is working, and you're urging every large corporate who is in service delivery, if you're not in essential, this is how you can manage. I think we're slowly moving there, but I think we have that crowd which is employed that we will manage very quickly. It's the informal sector that we have to deal with very carefully. It's the people moving in public transport we have to deal carefully. And that requires some leadership and some tactics. But can we talk about air travel?
Before you go to air travel,
Yeah.
We were on the informal sector, and I think when we had a break, we were just talking in here, and I had you really saying that we need, right now as it is, we don't know the ramifications, the rigors of this, that we need to set up counseling centers as it is. We have so many children at home right now, and even we've taken an initiative also as a media house to try and change our programming, right, to take care of the children who are at home.
That's right.
now. So even the shows that we have in the morning, changes.
Very good.
We had to try and make sure that we have that constituent at home right now. But when you're talking about counseling centers right now in the informal sectors, not necessarily in the informal sectors, what was your train of thought? I'm trying just to remember what you're telling us.
So we need a whole response center
response
strategy.
centers.
This response center strategy is to launch the Kenya COVID-19 Fund. This fund should be instituted as a national fund, both from within Kenya and from outside, to help provide the economic stimulus we will need in all the sectors. 11 million flowers were dumped in Europe 2 days ago. 80% drop in flower industry and tourism industry. 50,000 employees may lose jobs. So these are serious issues for Kenya. You must have seen the clip where flowers were just thrown because nobody's buying flowers. And all our flowers from Kenya end up going to
Europe.
To Europe.
Yes.
And there is no buyer. So this center, response center, will have modeled around the fund. It will be operated. It will have social, economic, and medical services. And in this social services, they'll be giving information all the time, these hubs. And we might have 50, 100, 5,000 of these hubs across the country. And this hub will continuously give information and provide social support. It will have also providing food and essential commodities that will be delivered in the homesteads. We will need counseling services. There will be a dial-in service, Frank, to have people and the elderly and also the families who've had social distancing to call in. And if you do need to see someone, the protective gear would be used and you would see someone. So these hubs could provide the integrity of communities around. So that was the thought process. I don't know, but this was something I was bouncing out with Frank that we've had this situation before.
Actually, we have, and we have a lot of. Again, those people who are old enough know that this is not the first time we're having a crisis of this type. So I'll say maybe three things about your thoughts and thinking. The first one, we've already said, this thing is not going away. It's going to be with us globally for another maybe 3 to 6 months, perhaps even longer. So that's one piece of reality. So this business of knee-jerk reactions, close tattoos, is not going to work, it's not going to be helpful. So we must allow ourselves, even as we do short-term interventions, to start thinking, now we're going to have children at home for another maybe 3 months. How are we, I think that's what you're thinking about. How are we going to manage this?
That's right.
We've already said that the instructions we're getting from epidemiologists are all counterintuitive in terms of the management of the mental status of our people. How are we going to mitigate this? In other words, we need separate groups of men and women of this country thinking about this is the measure we are taking, what its economic and social consequences of it, because it's not going away. So if I understand, Amit is saying, let us accept the medium and long-term nature and character. Now, let me say one other thing that I haven't heard often enough said in relation to the challenge that we have here. And I want to go a little bit global with your permission.
Please.
The reality is that this globe upon which we live is 100% interconnected. I can be in Seattle or in New Zealand tomorrow, depending on what I choose to do. So that is one fact. The next fact is that we are completely interdependent. Good old Trump claimed that they are in control, they're in charge. Nonsense. It's not true. What happened in China is now in his own state house, because he himself had to be tested. It reached prime ministers in Canada, in Portugal, in everywhere. So this thing is very democratic. It is catching everybody equally. So what I haven't heard enough of is we as Kenya are closing our schools. We in Kenya are, I haven't heard enough of we East Africans are doing. We Africans are doing. We as a global community are doing. Because, and this animal is in some ways exactly like climate change. We know what we've been battling recently with droughts. Recently, the Australians had fires that lasted 3 months, burning every single day. People in California had the same, people in Europe had the same. This garden that we were given, called the Garden of Eden, is what really is crying out for all of us to look after. You cannot, in isolation, in my very, very humble view, pretend that you, because you have nuclear power, you have good social services, that this is not, it's going to finish all of us together. So much as we say we have local propositions and value propositions, we have to be global. We have to be global because this is a global proposition. Even if we finish it completely in Kenya, we will still receive some from Tanzania and from Somalia. Look at the locust. The locust is an excellent example of how interdependent. And a locust doesn't ask for a passport, visa. It just comes. It just comes. The COVID is the same. It just comes. It just comes. So let's do this local one, but also let's increase the narrative that even as the Schengen countries are saying, oh, don't come. It's nonsense. If they don't help us to deal with ours, we'll take it to them.
We'll take it there.
And we don't need their permission.
Yes. And we have an existential threat right now, even from Somalia.
That's right.
Right. We know they've reported cases of coronavirus as it is right in Somalia, and we know it's a failed state as it is. Health system is broken completely. We are neighboring Somalia, and we know also our porous borders as well. How big a
the
threat
virus
is it?
will come without a visa.
They'll come without.
They're like the locals.
And I agree with Frank. I mean, all entries, we need to look at all the ports, road, sea and air, and we need to act as, like I said earlier, European Union has started thinking of them as a bloc. We need to start thinking as Africa, East Africa, Africa, and globally.
Yes.
But can I also say, we need to do things short term, mid-term, and long term.
Right. I mean, can I just interrupt you a bit, because we have also callers who are hanging on the line,
of course,
and they will have questions. I still know you haven't really commented on the air travel, so don't lose track of thought. That is very key as well. We have Joshua hanging on the line. Good morning, Joshua. Joshua, good morning. Kindly also dial down on your volume on the television so that we can clearly hear you.
Yes.
Yes. You have a question or a contribution? Morning to you.
Yes, I want to weigh in on the discussion we are having.
Please.
And I will want to support Dr. Amit fully when he says that I think it's a high time the government came in and managed the public transport sector.
Yes.
You realize that if we have a serious threat in the whole fight against COVID,
yes,
our biggest threat will come from the public transport, because if you leave these people to their own devices,
yes,
they are not going to act. Now, there is a word that has been bandied around called essential travel.
Essential travel.
Then I've heard you, Dibal, say that people are still traveling and people are still going to offices.
Yes.
Until such a time when one will realize that I really don't need to travel, and it will happen in this sense.
Yes.
The government needs to come up and say that a matatu can only carry 5 people. At that point, the matatu operators will realize that it is not economically viable to ferry 5 people from Nyeri to Nairobi.
Yes.
So they will be forced to hike their prices. It is at that point that the travelers will also need now question themselves and ask themselves, do I really need to travel to Nairobi? I think unless that one happens, Dibal, sometimes we say that we must sometimes defend the fool from destroying himself. The matatu business is going to be the biggest threat to the spread of the coronavirus.
Thank you.
Dibal, as I finish.
Yes, briefly.
I think I want to see COVID-19 from a positive angle, in the sense that it is such challenges that make people also realize and expose government on the rhetorics that they say that they have performed or they have not performed. The taste of the pudding will be in the eating.
Thank you.
We want to see if really our government has delivered in what they tell us that they have fixed our public health system.
Yes.
And all these things.
So this is actually exposing the soft underbelly of the government as well. Right. Yeah. Let's head over to Kisumu as well and talk to John. Good morning, John.
Hello, Dibal.
Morning to you. Hello.
Morning to you too.
Yes, you have a question or contribution briefly, John?
No, a contribution, Dibal.
Very briefly.
You know, there's what we call wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking, yes.
There's what we call the reality.
Yes.
Now, my question would be, you see, for big companies like NTV, for example, they plan 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead.
Yes.
So even if they ask you to go home, maybe they'd still pay you a salary.
Yes.
The government will still pay salaries to their people, even if they stay at home. What of us who are self-employed, or people who are working in startups? You see, the company depends on me being there. Now, how do I reach the company if I don't use a public transport? You see, in our country, the public transport is owned privately by people. In other countries, the public transport is owned by the government. So it's able to achieve the disinfection per trip by the government, because the public transport is owned by the government, not by the people. You see, and then Dibal, let's think of this virus this way. What if the world was a living thing? And then us human beings were the viruses. And now the world was reacting to us as the virus by producing things like the coronavirus. Maybe the coronavirus is the white blood cell of the world fighting us, the human beings, the virus. Now we should think, are we really taking care of our world such that the world does not react against us? Good morning.
Right. I think good thoughts. When we're talking about the green imperative, is the world really reacting against us as well? Thank you very much. Steve from Nairobi is hanging on the line as well. Good morning, Steve. Steve, good morning. Hello, Steve. Good morning. I think he's taking a coffee break as it is right now. We shall circle back with him. But also we have Leonard Kibugi. Just to mention what John was talking about earlier there. Was it Joshua, for the first caller, who was saying or talking about the transports? And there's Leonard Kibugi saying, a matatu from Kiambu to Nairobi makes 400 shillings profit a trip. A sanitizer costs 1,000 per bottle, as it is right now. Seems you people live in mass. The least you should do is give them free and fumigate stages and stops. This is what Leonard is saying. Also, we have Ken Ogindi saying, are we safe from corona considering the barber shops and salons where there are several contacts on the face by hand, turning from one customer to the next? Kindly ask the expert. We have Dikush also loading us saying, good practice, NTV. With regards to social distancing, kudos, and he's taken a screen grab of this. Of course, the panel we're trying. Of course, we normally have a bigger panel on Wednesday here. So this is some of the things as far as social distancing restriction is concerned as well. We're taking it very seriously as it is. Also, we have Mau saying, one of your guests is suggesting the government call for a state of emergency. How many of our people can afford to live under such conditions? Most are not as wealthy and live from check to check. How will they feed themselves, he asks. This is also APHTL saying state has inalienable emergency powers for common good. For instance, the orders given by Health CS Kagwe impact all arms of government, irrespective of separation of powers or mandate. Also, we have Dennis Munene. He's saying, it's a situation that leaves us no choice but to bear. I'm certain when this is over, our leaders will have developed some sense in developing of facilities, come another crisis, and they go on and on and on. Let's just react to these very pertinent issues that are coming to bear, and then we will also dwell on the air transport. Briefly, let's just continue with you, Amit.
Yeah, Joshua said that this is a scorecard for the government.
Yes.
It will be what will show a KPI, have they performed or not performed.
Yes.
Good line of thinking, and I think they also feel that. But Steve talked about state of emergency, and I totally agree. We need to be careful about how people can feed themselves. They live check to check. And this is where now leadership is being tested. How do we provide support when we do mention the state of emergency? Because when we do that, we're not doing it because we just feel like, but we are controlling the spread of the virus. Matatu, the barbers, I heard about wishful thinking, it's all that. Remember, we are in uncharted territory.
Yes.
Like Frank said, nobody really has a manual. And we've not had this manual globally, and we don't know. So because it's uncharted territory, every initiative being tried is tried in good faith. So even the sanitizers, the disinfectants are tried in good faith. Remember, sanitizers is not treatment. Remember,
it is
hand
good
wash.
Also to notify the public that necessarily you don't have to use the sanitizers. If you have a bar of soap,
that is
and
good
wash
enough.
your hands. And wash your hands.
And that doesn't mean you are protected for those 24 hours. So if anybody feels that I have sprayed and washed my hands and I don't need to practice social distancing because nimeweka sanitizer, that's a wrong approach. And this is, again, behavior change and methodologies that the media and people need to understand. It's not like you're fully protected. So these are sort of things that are coming out. We are learning. We're building our ship as we sail. And every day we're getting stronger. I feel that for the 3 months, if we brace ourselves, and I'm listening to your viewers, I think Kenya is ready. I think Kenya is ready to brace itself if the economic, social, and health posts are set up. We will get cooperation from all Kenyans, from all the 47 countries, to keep the numbers at its lowest and help and work with our brothers and sisters in the neighboring African countries to continue dealing with this even better than what the other countries have done.
Right.
I think this is start getting boring because we keep agreeing with each other.
Of course, we have to agree on so many angles as well today.
Because the combination of social, economic, and I would add political challenges in one melting pot in our country at the same time is what is really compounding the psychological consequences of what is before us. Bad news. Good news is as follows. You can actually change our cognition. This is a field called cognitive behavior therapy, which allows us to change the way we view situations.
Yes.
Amit suggested we try and, even as we report accurately about the bad news, introducing some positive things about. That's right. Yes. The second point, the truth is, we will get better. Some older people, unfortunately, will die before their time, but the reality is that we will get better, full stop. So that's the next positive thing that is. We have seen worse. I think in terms of actual mortality, the HIV epidemic that we dealt with killed more people than this thing is going to kill in our country.
So does malaria.
And so does malaria, diarrheal diseases, and so on. So really, we have seen worse. And we have systems in this country. We're not a banana republic. We have things that work in this country. We're a strong country. In spite of all the political things that we see, as a country we have been tested and we have shown that we can. So, and there are many things we must be grateful for. This is not positive thinking. The little song that children sing in Sunday school, you're blessed in your nana, that one. If you start counting the things that are positive in our country, there are many. And that is why I am complete support of this plan on Saturday of the prayer day that has been declared by the president. Those who don't believe in prayer, I don't know, I'll not point at anybody, but it's a moment of reflection. I think what the government and the president is urging us to do is to step back and say, what is my duty and responsibility to my brother, to my sister, to my environment, to the globe in general? What role can I... That, I think, is the message. And I'm in full support of stepping back and asking ourselves individually as we wake up on Saturday morning, what role can I play? What am I expected to do? And once you identify yourself, what role you're supposed to play, that itself becomes a positive thing. So let us do that on Saturday.
Right, thank you. Albert Rabisa, if I just don't run you by a clip, I think it's very pivotal. Jack, you'll just bear with me. Just briefly, this is South Korea and how we can see they've really stepped up their efforts in terms of trying to come up or stem the COVID-19 transmission, especially when it comes to public testing. South Korean hospital has introduced phone booth-style coronavirus testing facilities that allow medical staff to examine patients from behind the safety of a plastic panel. The latest innovation in the country's drive to track down infections. The row of 4 booths, which use negative air pressure to prevent harmful particles from escaping outside, stand under a tented shelter outside the H+ Yangyi Hospital in Seoul. The hospital dubs them the Safe Assessment and Fast Evaluation Technical Booths of Yangyi Hospital, or SAFETY for short. Each patient steps into the box for a rapid consultation by intercom with a medical professional who, if necessary, takes their sample by swabbing their nose and throat using arm-length rubber gloves built into the panel. The whole process takes about 7 minutes and the booth is then disinfected and ventilated. The South was once the hardest hit country outside China, where the virus first emerged, but appears to have brought its outbreak under control thanks to a huge testing and contact tracing efforts. This is where we should be headed as it is. If you want to test more people, we should think about also these very innovative ways. Amit, briefly, we are supposed to be winding up now.
Yeah, earlier I said I wanted to talk about short-term, mid-term, and long-term.
Yes.
And we also need to be realistic of our resources and how we should spend the money. These are fantastic ideas. The screen booth, the whole model of barrier consultation. Let's make it basic. We've got Safaricom, we've got telecom companies.
Yes.
Let's get them on board. Let's at least start phone call teleconsulting. I don't know whether you actually have done a teleconsulting, and many people who are watching don't know what teleconsulting is. They've been used to going to a clinic, to a hospital, to see a doctor and get treatment. We need to change that narrative. We need people to get ready for digital health and telemedicine, and you need to call before you see a doctor. So we need to do that as short term. Mid-term, I can see these kind of enhancements that we can build our health system. So there are certain things we have to do short term, mid-term, and in long term, I think we're going to come out of it, like Frank says, we are going to come out of it. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
And we'll have a stronger health system, and I hope that's going to be the positive spin-off after we are through with the COVID-19 outbreak.
Right, thank you. I think we should just end it there because of time. You've been very, very helpful in terms of giving us a very rich stream of information as it stands, Amit and Dr. Frank Njenga. I really do appreciate, and I hope Kenyans are taking cognizance of what they're saying here. A lot of information and very insightful way of how we can combat COVID-19 as well. I know we have not really handled the transport system, especially the aviation sector. I think we'll save that for another day. You'll be here just this week or next week as well. But right now, very important, just to remind you on the simple measures that you need to take as far as combating coronavirus is concerned. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Someone is asking, can we be in a matatu and wear masks? Will that also try and prevent the spread of coronavirus? This is some of the information that we're seeing on Twitter as well. But how to protect yourself? Frequently wash your hands with soap and water, or clean your hands with alcohol-based hand rub. Once your hands are cleaned, you should dry them thoroughly by using a paper towel or a warm air dryer. Maintain at least 1 meter distance between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Avoid touching eyes, nose and mouth. Hand touch many surfaces and can pick up viruses. Once contaminated, hands can transfer the virus to your eyes, nose and mouth. Make sure you and the people around you follow good respiratory hygiene. This means covering your mouth and nose with your bent elbow or tissue when you cough or sneeze. Then dispose of the used tissue immediately. If you have fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical care early. All right, when to use masks? If you're healthy, you only need to wear a mask if you are taking care of a person with suspected COVID-19 infection. Wear a mask if you're coughing or sneezing. Masks are effective only when used in combination with frequent hand cleaning with alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. If you wear a mask, then you must know how to use it and dispose of it properly. On traveling, and this is where we didn't have time to tackle aviation and this mode of transport, and people are asking also, is it safe for you to wear a mask in a matatu as well? They're saying don't cancel your travel plans, but take into account various restrictions airlines and countries have put in place. This is according to the World Health Organization. Practice hand hygiene while in a plane cabin or hotel and observe coughing etiquette. Stay clear of heavily impacted areas by staying aware of the latest information on COVID-19 outbreak and the crowded areas, especially people who are suspected to be infected. If you have traveled from a heavily impacted area, monitor yourself for 14 days. Very important. If you have a fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention and call in advance. Follow the directions of your local health authority. This is also very pivotal in terms of trying to stem the spread of coronavirus. Also here at Nation Media Group, we are doing a lot to inform the citizenry. Good example is what you've seen here, and the Kush from Philippines picked up that we're trying to also reduce the number of guests, the foot drops that we have in studio, to show what social distancing is. We are running a Safe Nation campaign to encourage and show citizenry what they can do to flatten the curve. Also, we are utilizing our platform to educate, like we did this morning, the citizenry, and are changing our content to suit the audience needs as well. We are at the forefront of this war daily, playing a role that is one we take very, very seriously. And as I've mentioned, also we've changed our programming, so just to suit also what is happening at home with the children, to take care of them as well. So the quote of the day is very simple, very, very, very simple. Precaution is better than cure. Precaution is better than cure. This is what Edward Coker said. Thank you very much. We'll continue apace with the conversation tomorrow. We'll try to see also what is the impact of the coronavirus on the economy, looking at the business daily today as we're winding up. Dividends also, if you're expecting your dividends, that will be delayed because, not because the Auditor General is not there, but because the virus is stalling AGMs as well, right? So that is the impact of coronavirus. It is serious, guys. Let's take precaution. Thank you for your valued company. I am Dibala Nea.
Welcome to Press Pass.
Naangalia TV ninaona habari zangu.
Napata news updates kutoka Google.
Sana sana online inakuwa sawa sawa.
Are we ready to transfer that audience?
People don't really trust social media. They will always go back to the traditional media sources.
The bashing of the media has become fashionable.
I was chased from the field because of politics. He says, "Wapi mtu ya gazeti, The Nation." I innocently lift my hand. And I he threw the room at me.
I am Mark Massa.